RX Television on RxMuscle.com. This is Ask Dave, better known as hashtag Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. Try the all-new creolized, ultra-micronized creatine by Species Nutrition. I'm your host, Sadiq Faruqi. This is your 30-minute question and answer show with Dave Palumbo. All your questions on diet, training, supplementation, life, IFBB pros, competitions. It is all on the table. If you want to join us, if you're watching us live on YouTube, you can ask your questions on the chat box on the right-hand side of the video player, on the Muscle Central forum on RxMuscle.com, our Instagram page, official_RxMuscle, Facebook, and Twitter. As we now bring in Dave Palumbo. Dave, a busy week on hand. You and Johnny were in Italy this past weekend, and if it was any sort of quiet week, this whole week we would have been posting videos from that. But then, obviously, the big shakeup, the big fallout involving Rich Piana, and then later on, Greg Valentino.
Yeah, it's great that when the industry provides us with the news stories and we can just respond to it. It's much harder to have to look for news. Now, luckily at RxMuscle here, we don't even have to look for news because we have so much original content we always have up there anyway that it doesn't really matter. But when a week breaks out like this, where Valentino gets fired from someplace and he wants to talk about it, and then Rich Piana gets sandbagged with a racist voicemail message he had left 10 years ago, and that gets put up. We have to respond to it. The community demands it. And, so we got a lot of people on the show responding, from Lee Priest to Greg Valentino, and then Greg obviously told us what happened with him and Joe Piataro over at Muscle Sport Mag, why they split ways. So it was good, and I loved it. I love when we have stuff that, that this is controversial, because to me that gets me. I love the debate because not everyone agrees. It's sometimes it's boring when everyone agrees with everything you say. So, we had a lot of opinions put out there. Probably by the time tomorrow rolls around, you'll get to see Lee Haney's reaction, because I got a quote from him that I'm going to read on the air. And the industry goes on. Next week, everyone will forget what happened this week, and there'll be some new drama, I'm sure, that we'll be drumming up and covering, for that matter. So, we're in the midst of the contest season, and when you're in the midst of the contest season, you never know what's going to happen.
If you're watching us on YouTube, hit the like button below. If you haven't already subscribed, subscribe below. We appreciate your support as always. And if you're following us on Instagram, here's my challenge to everyone. My birthday is on July 10th. We are currently at 94.7 thousand followers on Instagram. It is June 14th. So you have less than a month. We want 100,000 followers by July 10th, by my birthday. 94.7 right now. If you haven't already liked us on Instagram, follow us there. That's where we post all our content, as well as on our YouTube channel. Let's go to the questions. First, we start off with Shredded Eagle. Dave, will combining long ester and short ester compounds mess with your blood levels too much?
First of all, your birthday, July 10th, is when I'm getting my shoulder replaced. So say a prayer for me, and I'll say a birthday wish for you. Mixing long and short esters, like enanthate with a product like testenanthate with maybe a short-acting ester like tren acetate is fine. It's great. The long-acting esters are good because they kind of give you consistent blood levels. And then when you put the fast-acting esters in, okay, you get these big spikes and peaks, which is great as long as you have a long-acting ester. Matter of fact, back in the day when I used to use testosterone suspension, if anyone has ever used it, they know that it only lasts about 8 to 10 hours in your body at high levels. So if you just take test suspension, I noticed this, I would get ups and downs. I'd feel great one minute, the next minute I feel terrible. So what I would do is I would take a long-acting testosterone with it. So I might take 250 milligrams of testenanthate with the suspension. So the enanthate gave me this nice baseline level, and then every time I would take the suspension every morning, I get this nice little spike in testosterone, but it never dropped below baseline because I always had that base long-acting esters. So to answer your question, it's a great idea to take long-acting and short-acting esters together.
Let's go to SPaul95. Dave, any suggestions for getting rid of serious muscle knots in the neck and or traps? My neck and traps get extremely stiff and the muscles cramp up even to the point of headaches. What is the best way to loosen those muscles up?
I'm massaging my neck right now. I got tons of knots in my shoulders and traps, believe me. I asked my wife before to please massage my traps. I hold a lot of tension there. We all do. we all, a lot of us compensate with our traps, and then that's why the neck and the trap area gets so tight, and then you can barely even turn your neck, So what I recommend is get sports massages, deep tissue massages, at least once every 2 to 3 weeks. If you can afford to do it weekly, then that's great. But I would try to get them at least 2 to 3 weeks, especially if you're a competitive top elite bodybuilder, someone who's really putting their body through the ringer. I promise you will recover better from your workouts, you will have better flexibility, and you will perform better. And if you could perform better in the gym, you're going to grow better. That's what it's all about.
Let's go to, is it BI? I believe it's BI. Dave, what is your ultimate conclusion on losing body fat? Is it calorie deficit the only requirement, or is a keto diet with calorie deficit even better?
We know that calories are ridiculous to worry about it because they're not all equal. You can give someone 3,000 calories, okay, of protein. You can give them 1,000 calories of carbs a day and nothing else, and they'll gain fat on the carbs and they'll lose weight on the protein. So calories mean nothing. It's the composition. It's the macronutrient ratios of how much protein to how much fat to how many carbs. We know that when carbohydrate ratios are lower, we burn fat better. Why? Because insulin levels are lower, and insulin is a fat storage hormone. We all know that protein is necessary to be high and eaten frequently throughout the day. That is no one will debate that. We might have diet debates from today till tomorrow. No one will debate that we need to eat a lot of protein to build muscle. And that, at least no one who's a good bodybuilder will debate that fact, because we all know that to be true. The debate usually occurs in, should you lower fats or should you lower carbs? I say, because fats are essential in the diet, because they're essential for good health, okay, and because they have a need in the body, it's ridiculous to lower fats too much. I didn't say you shouldn't lower them at all. I said you shouldn't get rid of them, okay? The expendable nutrient in my book is carbohydrates. Now, just because it's expendable doesn't mean you need to get rid of all of it and go into a ketogenic diet. Not everyone needs to. Some people can eat high protein, moderate fat, and moderate carbs. And you have to depends on your metabolism, and you have to figure out the metabolism of who you're working with, how low you need to go on carbs. I find that with most women, I need to get rid of the carbs completely, okay? But then there's a small population of women that are not good fat metabolizers. Very few, but there are some. And those women I have to give some carbs to. So there's no rule in stone, but the bottom line is that carbohydrates are expendable because there's no such thing as an essential carbohydrate.
Reminder, if you haven't already seen on RxMuscle.com and our YouTube channel, exclusive interview with Greg Valentino after his firing from Muscle Sport Mag, as well as Lee Priest chiming in on the Rich Piana controversy. Both those right now on RxMuscle.com and our YouTube channel. Let's go to Chris E. Dave, when you take a DHT blocker, saw palmetto with estrogen blocker like Arimidex, I don't see where the question, but rather is, can you take a DHT blocker, saw palmetto with an estrogen blocker like Arimidex?
Absolutely. Matter of fact, I recommend it because a lot of times when you take an estrogen blocker like Arimidex, an aromatase inhibitor, which basically inhibits the conversion of testosterone into estrogen, invariably you're going to produce more DHT. Because now more testosterone is available to convert to DHT because less of it has converted to estrogen. So a lot of times guys who are very DHT sensitive, I know I used to break out real easy. I didn't really have any prostate issues or hair issues till I hit 30, but initially I would break out really bad. I found that when I took an aromatase inhibitor, I broke out worse. So that when I took a DHT blocker, okay, I think my first one was saw palmetto, a certain saw palmetto supplement I used, I noticed that my acne got better. When I took finasteride, which was I started taking finasteride because I was worried I was starting to lose my hair at some point, about 30 years old. When I took that, I noticed I didn't break out anymore. It was like amazing. I have a lot of teens and guys who are in their early 20s who have bad acne. They just started weight training. I have them on my Testalize product, and it basically wipes out their acne, or at least some of these guys have told me that. It certainly alleviates the symptoms of it and keeps the breakout incidence much lower because it's blunting the production of DHT. It's not a good idea to get rid of all your DHT, especially if you're in the growth stages, but to blunt some of it and inhibit a little bit of it is good, okay? Just like you don't want to get rid of all your estrogen because estrogen sensitizes your body your androgen receptors to building muscle, and it also is responsible for sex drive, but you do want to get rid of a lot of it. You don't want to have too much estrogen in your body, and you don't want to have too much DHT. So it's all about balance, and that's what the Testolize product is all about that I produce. It's a testosterone optimizer. The reason it optimizes testosterone is because it balances estrogen and DHT levels.
On that note, testosterone, Johnny Dumbbells, great name by the way. Dave, what are the dangers of low testosterone? Your thoughts on the safety of testosterone replacement therapy over the course of 30 to 40 years?
I think if you stick in physiological ranges, meaning that whatever you take, first of all, when you take a testosterone replacement, usually they put you on 100 milligrams at first, and then they may bump it up. Some places will put you on 200 milligrams. You know, I know Titan Medical, that I send a lot of people to, will put you on 400 milligrams because it's all based on what your blood levels of the stuff are. So when I was taking 100 milligrams a week of testosterone and anthate, my testosterone level was through the roof. It was like 1300, which is high. I must just, produce, my body responds well to the supplements. I don't know. I have a high testosterone now, and I haven't taken a shot at anything in 2.5, almost 3 years now. So I have naturally good testosterone levels. Now, I know other guys that take 200, 300 milligrams of testosterone a week, and they barely have 800, which is, the high normal, So you got to figure out what will keep you in that normal range, which is about up to 850. Even 1,000, I think, is still normal. High normal is okay. If you can keep yourself in that range, I think you can stay on replacement for the rest of your life. I don't think that there's any negative ramifications. I think the negative ramifications come when you start amping up the dosages and you're getting more now of a pharmacological effect as opposed to a physiological effect. You grow better, but you have more side effects.
We have a good one here that's going to make you think a little bit. Jason, since 77, Dave, if you took the body parts of all top bodybuilders to build the perfect physique, how would you put it together? Such as, starting off with chest, I'd say Johnny Jackson to begin with, who has the best chest in the business, Tom Platz for quads, etc. What do you think? I
have a very simple answer, okay? I would take Big Rami's physique and I'd put Flex Wheeler's waist on him, and you'd have Mr. Olympia 50 times over. That's it. You don't need. Rami has no weaknesses really, and he doesn't have a big waist, but if his waist was Flex Wheeler's, no one would ever touch him. No one would ever beat him. It would be a dynasty.
Let's go to, we had a good one here on...
I'll qualify that a little bit. Let me qualify it a little bit more. Rami's physique, Flex's waist, my conditioning. How about that? There's Mr. Olympia.
Go to T4 Training. Lee Axon from the UK watching live from our holiday in Turkey. Awesome. My question revolves around training now versus the 70s. Do you think the work ethic back then was more intense or not?
No, I think in the 70s they actually trained. I think the training was too much. They did a lot of overtraining. They would train for hours and hours and hours, and I don't think the science of training was quite there yet. They really had no machines either. They had all free weights, which is nothing wrong with that. Believe me, I think free weights is really important for building good quality mass. But I think that really the training golden era was probably the mid 90s. Early to mid 90s is when people really understood how to mix free weight and machine movements. Techniques had been established as far as not overtraining, understanding that recovery was important, taking days off from the gym. And I felt that's why the physique development was so good in the 90s. I don't think the drugs were better. I don't think the genetics were better. I think that just the training was better. And I think that was really the heyday of training was during the 90s. I really believe that.
Grant Perkins, I'm 18 weeks out, but really need gynecomastia surgery. Should I wait or try and knock it out and recover as fast as possible? Sponsor really wants me to compete at this show. I can win without surgery.
You're gonna be out of the gym for 4 weeks probably. Training hard. You'll probably be back after 3 weeks. Training light. So probably not the best idea unless you have really good genetics where you can recover and you're gonna continue to diet during the surgery. So you're not gonna be overweight. You're not gonna have to lose too much. It's possible. If the gynecomastia is not that bad, I would probably wait till after the show, just personally, and do it over the winter. But If it's terrible where it's going to hurt you placing, I would say get it done.
Daniel Emil Ussing watching from Denmark with hate because I just came home from my leg workout, accidentally turned on this terrible show, and now I cannot get up and turn it off. Thoughts on Aromasin versus Arimidex?
Aromasin, is that what it was, the other? Aromasin?
He spelled it like Arimidex, but he spelled it like Arimistane.
I don't know what I know. There's Aromasin, and then there's the generic of that is exomethystane. So I'll answer the question as if it's Aromasin versus Arimidex. They're both essentially the same. They inhibit the aromatase enzyme, and the aromatase enzyme's job is to convert testosterone into estrogen. If you inhibit that enzyme, no matter whether it's a suicide inhibitor or it's not, as long as you're blocking that enzyme, your body can't convert testosterone into estrogen. Okay, so that's going to keep estrogen levels lower. Now, if you take too much of those aromatase inhibitors, you will lower estrogen too much, and I mentioned that earlier. That's not good because the androgen receptors will not be as receptive, and your sex drive will be affected by it. So, most people respond very well to Arimidex and a very low dose, like a 0.5 milligram a day, and most people feel great on it. So I always usually prescribe Arimidex. As far as some people, there's a small group of people I think who don't respond well to Arimidex, and those people usually do respond well to either Femara, which is letrozole, or Aromasin, which is exomethystane. So either one of those is a good alternative. If Arimidex doesn't work, I usually like to use Arimidex as my first line of defense, so to speak.
Lax Raider, Dave, do you have any clients sign any sort of liability papers due to usage/recommendation of PEDs, etc.?
I don't. I know some people do out there because I'm not an expert, and I'm not excuse me, I like to believe I am an expert, but I'm not a licensed professional. So in other words, if I was a doctor giving out advice, I would probably have to have people sign a disclaimer, because then I would be giving medical advice outside of what I was licensed to do in school. But I don't have a degree in medicine. Even though I went to medical school, I have not graduated. I don't have a degree in anything other than biology and anthropology. So if you want to listen to me, you could. I'm giving advice out. That's all there is to it. The bottom line, if someone wants to sue you, they're going to sue you. I try to that's why I treat all my clients as if they were my son or my brother or my wife. I treat them as though their health is important to me. I try not to have them do risky stuff, use risky supplements that I know could be dangerous. I know that people out there are going to use steroids, they're going to use drugs, they're going to use supplements. My job is to try to educate people how to use them responsibly, and that's what I do. And like I said, if someone wants to sue me down the road for whatever reason, I'm sure they could do it. That's why I have liability insurance and everything like that, and I have a high policy. But hopefully that never happens, because like I said, I always try to steer people away from doing dangerous things.
John Passman, Dave, what is your opinion on Tony Huge advocating lower test dosing along with higher trend doses? They claim lower side effects such as fluid retention.
Yeah, I don't agree with that, to be honest with you. First of all, you might get less fluid retention, but who cares? Testosterone is a much better anabolic. There's nothing more anabolic than testosterone out there. So if you're trying to maximize gains and preserve muscle at a maximum rate, you want your testosterone to be highest. Likewise, the negative, toxicity issues of the anabolics are much higher than testosterone, because testosterone, long-acting testosterone, has no side effects. It has no toxicity, really, I should say, in the body, because that's what your body naturally produces. If you take 800 milligrams of Trenbolone a week, you're going to have crazy high blood pressure. You're going to have anxiety, okay, because the androgen levels are too high. Your body's not equipped to take that. You could even get heart arrhythmias from that, okay? Not good. If you take too much DECA, you're going to get super high prolactin levels, which the side effects of that are worse than the estrogen side effects, because it kills your sex drive. A lot of guys get what we call DECA dick. They can't get erections. Not good. Not good. Likewise, if you start raising the amounts of orals, like Winstrol and Anavar, now you're having toxicity, because these compounds are 17-alpha alkylated. That's why these oral compounds remain active in the body for 24 hours. So I don't agree with that. I think it's a misleading statement. I think he makes the statement because it sounds on paper like it should be logical, but he hasn't been doing this long enough to see the hundreds and thousands of people I've worked with over the years of how they respond, and I know how I responded. So I know this seems to be the new bro science out there, but to me, it's just irresponsible reporting.
Johannes999, your thoughts about using digestive enzymes with meals for bodybuilders? What is the side effects and benefits of it?
You know, I tried digestive enzymes before I actually realized that I needed a fiber supplement and that would help my stomach, process the foods better. But I tried digestive enzymes and all I did was get indigestion from them because I didn't really need them, So not many, in my experience, not many people out there need digestive enzymes. What that means is that their bodies produce enough digestive enzymes naturally. Very rare are people deficient in digestive enzymes. Now, some older people might be, but very infrequently do I see anyone who really needs digestive enzymes. That's not to say that they're not beneficial, but I haven't seen any benefits from it. No one has said to me, you know what, Dave, I used these things, or I shouldn't say large amounts of people haven't told me I use these things and gotten results. There's so many other things to spend your money on that I just don't think it's worth it.
Be wacky, what could be the possible side effects of using Test and EQ? And he asks, hair loss, is that a possibility?
Well, anytime you take testosterone, a certain percentage of that testosterone will convert to DHT, dihydrotestosterone. And in people who are sensitive to hair loss genetically, that could exacerbate or make it worse, for certain. There are guys out there, look at Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler's got a freaking great head of hair, man. This kid didn't lose a hair on his head since he started bodybuilding. That's genetic. His parents probably have great hair too. I never lost a hair on my head till I hit 30. When I hit 30, it was like someone flipped the switch and all of a sudden I started thinning out. So that was my genetics. Other guys I know lose hair at 18 years old. They're starting to go bald already. And that's usually because it's in their genetic tree. There's no way to inhibit that. And until we figure out how to regrow hair, in a test tube and then sew it onto our head, there's really nothing that we can do about it. That's just the way it is.
Let's go to Jack and Juicy Sequence. Actually, no, let's go back here a second. I'm sorting through some of these questions. Your keto diet, you have a cheat meal every week. Wouldn't it knock you out of keto for a few days every single week?
No, it actually only knocks you out of ketosis maybe for about maximum 10 or 12 hours. I find it's usually about 8 hours. If I would have a cheat meal like on a Friday or Saturday night, by the next morning after I got back from the gym, I was back in ketosis. I did feel it in the morning. When I would wake up in the morning, I'd feel groggy, like I knew my brain wasn't functioning that well. Once I did that workout, man, I was or did cardio, I was right back into ketosis. So yeah, as long as you don't go crazy excessive and you don't eat for like the whole day, one meal is only going to keep you out of ketosis for maybe, like I said, for 8 to 10 hours.
Parker A, I hate to show as much as Lee Priest loves his dumpster house. Thoughts on using CLA, GDA, and L-carnitine pre-contest to help keep metabolism high, and would you cut any during peak week?
Well, CLA is not going to do anything. It's not an essential fat. In cows, it's great. You feed cows CLA, they build more muscle and they burn fat. Why? Because in cows, CLA is a positive food partitioning agent. It tells the body build muscle, store body fat. Build muscle, use stored body fat as a fuel source for that. But it doesn't do that in humans. Why? Because we have different stomach structures than cows, and we just like monkeys produce their own vitamin C and we don't. There's a genetic difference there. So you can't apply one thing to one animal and think it's going to affect the other animal the same. And obviously we're animals, part of the animal kingdom, doesn't work for us. Carnitine is a fat transporter, meaning that it transports long-chain fatty acids into the mitochondria of the muscle cell so that they may be oxidized for fat. So if you have a deficiency in L-carnitine, or there's a limiting amount in your cells and you put more in there, theoretically you can transport fat better. That doesn't mean that doesn't mean that L-carnitine itself is a fat metabolizing supplement. It doesn't in its own burn fat. It just helps transport fats into the mitochondria to be oxidized for fat, oxidized for energy. So people who load up on tons and tons of L-carnitine, it's probably not going to do anything for you. Taking a little bit is good because if you're a little deficient, it will replace that, but most people are not severely deficient in L-carnitine.
Or Jucket Dave, can you give me an honest assessment of how much quote-unquote clean versus junk food IFBB pros eat during the off-season? I know you and Jay Cutler at one point ate burgers and fries almost every day, but Dorian and Ronnie claimed they almost always ate clean food.
Yeah, I don't consider McDonald's junk food. At least I didn't when I was competing. I grew on this stuff. No, you know, I ate most of my meals. I would say 90% of my meals were very clean. I purposely would eat a little junkier just because I wouldn't grow otherwise, you know, because my metabolism was so crazy fast. But, you know, I know a lot of pros that like to eat a lot of junk food. They probably eat way more than they should. And I know guys that are so restricted that they eat nothing bad for them. And once again, the two extremes are not good. You want to find some middle ground. Most of your meals should be good for you. You know, to spike metabolism a little bit, to have you know, a little bit of a junky meal here and there, that's good. That's balance. But by and far, our bodies are building muscle, okay, at maximal rates from clean sources of protein and fats, and that's really what you want to focus on in your diet. The carbs are just the fuel source. Eating 1,000, 2,000 grams of carbs a day when you don't have a fast metabolism is not a good idea.
Jay is a Gaib or a Gee, but Dave, I'm a few days out from back-to-back shows. I have always been against using protein powders during a contest diet. However, this prep, I've been using Isolyze for my last meal. I'm seeing great results as my body fat is lower than it's ever been pre-contest. My question, in your opinion, can I keep Isolyze in all the way up until the day before the show? Could I possibly get away with using for 2 total meals a day? Or would you stick to whole food and only 1 shake pre-contest?
I have a lot of guys use Isolyze 3 times a day, to be honest with you. It's so clean. There's no lactose in it. There's nothing bad in it. It's just protein. I mean, you can use it. I have guys use it to the right before the show, usually that last day before I eliminate it and I go to all food. But throughout the whole diet, I keep it in. I mean, you could do 2-3 shakes a day, no problem whatsoever.
Let's go to Mark McKenna. Dave, your thoughts on myostatin inhibitors. Are they worth the money, or am I better off getting HGH?
My answer is GH better than every other peptide and every other thing that you get from peptide websites. Yes, if you can afford GH and get real GH, nothing is better than that right now. Even the IGF out there is not better than it because I don't know if the IGF is up to snuff, so to speak. So GH is better. Unfortunately, a lot of people out there are hyping all these peptides that are available for purchase because they're cheap to make. There's a high profit margin on them. And right now, there's a gray market where people can buy them legally and people like to buy drugs. So if they can, I can buy this drug, I'm not going to get in trouble for it. It's right available on this website. I put my credit card in and I get it. That's unfortunately the reality situation, but nothing compares to GH. GH is so much more powerful than all these different things.
Caleb Gritz wants an update on Akeem Williams. Do you think you will work with Akeem for his next show? And is he doing Tampa, or what is his next move?
Akeem called me probably 2 weeks after the that New York show, and we talked on the phone. And I told him pretty much that. I said, you should be doing Tampa. I said, I said, I don't know what's going on with you and the Camel Crew after you're going back out there. And he said, no, he's done working with them. I guess his contract expired, whatever that means. And he's not going back there, and he's on his own now. And I said, well, I would recommend you do Tampa. Now, he didn't ask me to work with him or not. Of course, he knows if he does, I will, I'll never turn my back on him. I've been working with him since he first started. But I don't know what his plans are. I don't know if he wants to compete or not, if he's going to wait till after the Olympia. I told him I think it would be a very good idea for him to get back on stage now, because you don't want to end the season with a bad taste in your mouth. Like, hey, I could have been better. He hasn't peaked his body yet. So I don't know if he's made a decision yet or not. I'll have to text him later and find out. But I think it would be a very smart move for him to do Tampa.
Let's go to J. Gate Potato Life. I don't know. Anyway, I would like to know more about DMAA from your point of view. Some are saying it's safe to consume in doses lower than 150 mgs, and some swear that it's so bad, has very bad effects, and that it can kill you.
I don't think anyone's dying from DMAA, which is an ingredient that a lot of companies put in their pre-workouts and some of their mental stimulation pills out there. It kind of gives you like a euphoric mental stimulatory effect that pretty much can't be mimicked by caffeine or these other things out there. The problem is it's questionably legal. A couple of people do have a license to make it. I don't know what the legal ramifications are of what they're doing or not, but it's out there. It's in supplements. My concern with it is that it's very addictive and it kind of messes up your brain chemistry. While you're on it, you feel really good. When you take it away, you feel terrible. And it takes a long time for your brain chemistry to regulate itself. So to me, not really worth it, at that point. Just because it's legally available right now, that doesn't mean if Adderall was legally available, you should use Adderall. Because you'd feel really good taking Adderall. But it's addictive, number one. And number two, when you remove the Adderall, your brain chemistry is all screwed up, and it could take 6 months to a year to feel normal again. So to me, no benefit. It doesn't build muscle. Yeah, it makes you a little more focused, but it doesn't build muscle. So for a bodybuilder, that's not a good drug. If you're a drug addict and you want to just get high, it's a good drug. Yeah, that's a great drug, but not good if you're trying to make a career as a bodybuilder.
We have an interesting one here from Jay Wynn, is it? Greg Wynn, rather. Greg Wynn. If you were training now and the Camel crew came knocking, would you go to Kuwait?
No, I probably wouldn't. And I had this discussion with my wife. I'd probably be tempted to go there just because it seems like a cool environment, and I don't really, I didn't, when I was competing, I really wasn't into partying or anything like that. So I like the quietness of it. I'd probably write 6 books while I was there because I'd have no one breaking my balls or interrupting me. And it kind of would be like solitude, and I'd be able to just train and eat, and that's what I like to do. So it might be tempting to go there just because I like the environment of it, and they make you feel special there. I don't know if I would have gotten any benefit out of it, only because I already trained so hard. I took all the right supplements and drugs. I was such a methodical maniac when I was a bodybuilder, and I was so focused. I don't think I could get any more out of, in that environment. But you know what? Maybe I would, because maybe they would have pushed me even harder in the gym there. So I don't know, but it would be tempting. But I had so many projects going on that it would have been tough to just leave what I was doing and go there. You have to have my lifestyle was never just so singly focused where I could just get up and go. I just didn't really have that luxury.
Why, Jaws, thoughts on reverse dieting after a contest or jumping right into 750,000 calorie surplus or over what you dieted on?
I like to gradually build up the food after a contest diet because your stomach is really small, and there's no sense in jamming food in there. You're not going to be able to fit it in anyway. You're just going to get bloated and you're going to feel terrible. So I usually put guys back on like 40 grams of carbs per meal with their protein fat diets for the first 2 to 3 weeks. Let their stomach start stretching out a little bit. Allow them to start assimilating this food, and then build up the nutrients. All right, I'm not gaining. Let's add 50 grams of protein. Let's add 30 grams of fat to the diet per day. Not gaining. Let's add 50 grams of carbs now. And then I build it up that way until we get to a point where the person's starting to gain, and that's what we want. So it's better to do it gradually than to throw a shitload of calories in all in one shot, because that never ends well.
Johnny Styles, our producer, is trying to wrap me up. He's about to strangle me, but we'll take a couple of quick questions. Actually, I'm going to take this other one first. It was a question on species. Rob wants to know if and when the species liver care support is coming out.
I thought about coming out with something like that. I sell a product on DavePalumbo.com called Kidney Stuff. It's a great product. It's probably the only really good product out there for people who have high creatinine and BUN. I sell a lot of it. There's a lot of bodybuilders who use it as a protective, precautionary type of thing. Then there's a lot of bodybuilders that use it just to detox after a cycle. And then there's a lot of guys that take it year round just for protective purposes. And then there's people who have super high creatinine and BUN, and they call me up and what should I do? And we put them on it. I talked to the guy who created this product, Kidney Stuff, and I said, look, why don't you produce a product called Liver Stuff? Because your kidney stuff. So he goes, we actually have a formula for it. We haven't put it out. I said, well, let's do it. I don't always need to make everything myself. I don't mind selling other people's products if I believe in them. So if this guy ever puts it out in the next 6 months, I'll probably come out with, I'll be selling his liver stuff. If he doesn't come out with it, I'll probably maybe do one myself. I don't know. I haven't thought about it yet. But right now, I personally use Life Extension's European Milk Thistle. I really like it a lot. And I got news for you. Since I started using it, my liver enzyme levels always come back perfect. Now, it could also be that I don't train as hard as I used to, but who knows? At least I know my liver's not in danger of anything right now.
Before we take our last question, our producer Johnny Sile points out that right now in our YouTube chat room, we have over 500 people chatting, asking questions. So as always, we thank you for your support and thank you for really getting us up here to the point where we're about to break 80,000 subscribers on YouTube. And again, we could not have done any of this without you and your support. Let's take the question from train_insane. Dave, I'm getting forearm extensor pain from heavy bench press. I use wrist straps and elbow wraps. What could I do to make this better?
Yeah, I've gotten this question before, Sid, and there's a very simple answer. I fell victim to this too. When I was about the 300-pound mark, I said, my forearms look pretty good. I don't need to train them anymore. And I just stopped training because I got lazy. And probably within 2 months, all of a sudden I was getting tremendous wrist pain. I was pulling the brachioradialis muscle every time I would yank up dumbbells that were really heavy, and I couldn't figure out what the hell was going on. And this kept happening. I would rest and let the muscle recover, and then it would happen again. And I'm like, there's something wrong with me. And then I said to myself, I started analyzing what I was doing. I said, maybe, could it have anything to do with the fact that I stopped training forearms? Even though my forearms look pretty big, maybe they're just weak. I started doing wrist curls, even through the pain of that I had. I would do them almost every day. Wrist curls like this, reverse wrist curls off a bench, and seriously, within 2 weeks, all my pains went away. I never pulled another muscle there, and I realized that you cannot allow a weak link to exist. That means that these little accessory muscles here, okay, can easily be damaged if they're not trained to keep up with the rest of the body. So don't neglect your forearms, don't neglect your calves and tibialis anterior, and don't neglect your neck. That was another thing. When I would train super heavy, if I didn't train my neck once a week with the neck machine, I would get pulls down, into my neck, into my skull. I would get strained necks. But when I train my neck on a regular basis, it never happened. So don't forget the accessory muscle groups as well.
That's going to do it for this episode of Ask Dave, brought to you by Species Nutrition. Visit speciesnutrition.com. For Dave Palumbo and Johnny Styles, I'm Sadiq Faruqi. We'll see you next time.